welcome to Amateur Redneck Workshop. I'm Harold, and today we're gonna make a scope height gauge. It's a useful thing for some people. How about that? It's useful for me, and I like to make things that are useful for me. If you like the video, or if you don't like the video, push the like button, because my likes are going down, and I need them to go back up. Okay? The number of them, not the percentage, but the number. So, without having anything further to say, let's just get on with building a scope height gauge. To begin the job, I'm going to take this piece here, and I'm going to square off the end, and I'm going to put a 5/8 thread in it. And then, when I've got that done, I'll kind of clean up this ugly surface, and then I'll part it off and take it over to the milling machine and mill a flat spot on it. That flat spot's where I'll put another threaded piece in. Okay, this piece is going to be threaded 5/8 so that I can put different size pieces in it to to fit different size barrels. Say a 22 or a 45 or a 9mm, they'll all have a different size piece. They'll insert up in the barrel to be tight. They'll be square with this guy when they're screwed down tight, and we'll have a rod coming up the top from it. Okay, so the first step is just to square this piece off and make it look a little bit better on the sides here, and thread it for a 5/8 thread. So I'll get set up to do that. Alright, let's see if it'll stay in focus on there. I squared off the end. Now I'm going to clean up the side a little bit, and then we'll start threading it. Alright, all we needed was just enough to clean it up, make it look shiny. Next step, drill a hole for the 5/8 tap, and tap the little bugger. Well, I thought the camera was turned on when I drilled it, but anyway, I drilled a 37/64 hole, and now I'm going to do a 5/8 18 thread in it, and I'm going to try to power tap it. We'll see how it works out. It could work. I think we need to clean it up a little. Ooh, it's full of chips. Yeah. Wiggle them out of there. I don't have the air compressor on. I don't want to crank it up right now because it'll make too much noise for me to talk to you guys. So, alright. Next cut. That's not all the way to the bottom. It'll take just a little bit more before it stops. That's the bottom. And that should be threaded at least a ½ inch, you know, complete full thread down in there. So now all I need to do is kind of beautify this edge a little bit, and we'll move on to the next step. That's one of my homemade tool holders. Guess I'll That's probably as beautified as it's going to get. Alright, I'll set up to part this off, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, I got the speed back up. We're going to part it off right there. Alright, I don't think that this tool is square, so let me readjust it. We'll get back to it. There we are. Alright, I'm going to turn around, put it in here and just beautify the end a little bit, and then we'll move on to the mill to cut a flat spot. Alright, I got a little copper in the jaws there to soften the grip. Take this guy and move him out, and get somebody else to go in, like this guy right here. Then we'll clean it up, make it look nice. That looks better. Feels better to my hand. So I want to make sure that it's easy to know where the center is. So I'm going to just make a little mark there with a center drill. What else? Just a very tiny little dot right in the end of it, so that it won't affect my accuracy, you know. And now we'll move the little bugger over to the milling machine and make a flat spot. Alright, I'm going to make a flat spot on here, which should be square with this direction and up and down, and I believe it will be. The actual depth of it is, and the actual width of the flat spot is not all that important. It just needs to be a flat spot. So I'm not going to turn on the DRO or do a lot of measuring. I'm just going to cut it by eye. That looks to me like a plenty good enough flat spot there. And now I'm going to drill a hole in the little booger. So I got to move everything and lift the head and all that stuff to get a drill chuck in there. Well, I'm going to drill this thing for 1/4 But before I do that, I'm going to just make a little hole here with the center drill to keep my drill bit from wandering around crooked. I wish that I had my exact, I'm going to have to probably use, I guess, a number 7 drill. And I will make threads that fit it good. That'll be a 75% thread. I've got to look around here and find out what I did with my, I think it's what, 5/32 drill. That's the one that cuts a 50% thread on a 1/4. And don't hold me to those sizes. You can get a thread cutting chart practically anywhere on the internet, and you can check out the right drill size. I go by 50% thread or 75%. It's easier to know that everything's going to screw into a 50% thread, so that's what I usually make. I looked at the chart. 7/32 is the one that I've misplaced, and that's the right one to make a 50% thread on a 1/4. So my threads will go in there quite nicely. Don't need it that deep, but when I thread it, I don't have to worry about the tapered part of the thread being too high up. Alright, we got a little tap magic for aluminum, and I've started the thread a little bit with it. I've soaked the thread cutter, the tap with it. I'll get it out in a minute. And so I'm going to try to use this as a method of starting it nice and straight. I guess that's about as much as it's going to do. I've got some brand new taps. Got some sitting upstairs on my desk that I could have been using here. I don't know why not, but they're still up there. Alright, let me go and see if I can find a tap wrench, and I think that'll help me to do this a lot straighter. Alright, that tap wrench forces it to stay straight just like the tap followers do, and pretty much I like it. So I will back. Alright, I went and got a taper tap, which I guess some people call a number 1 tap, and then I got a plug tap, which I guess is the number 3 tap, and finished the hole once I got the thread started with that taper tap, and that is officially the bottom of the hole, and that'll be the bottom of the thread. And all I need to do is get rid of that burr there that I left cutting the threads, and this piece will be finished. Okay, the burr's gone. I'm not going to tell you how I did it, because I did it in a way not approved of by Mr. Pete or Tom Lifton or Randy Richard or any of those guys that do super good work. So I'm just going to keep my secret. But you can see it's nice and smooth, and the burr's gone. And this piece is finished. There's a nice little hole here that I can know where the center is at. Here's for my part that's going to stick up. There's for the part that's going to go inside. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you could see it or not. I knew you couldn't. Look at all those chips in there, man. There's a lot of them, but this thing's finished. I've got the holes inside. Got the flat spot there with the burr removed. Got a little hole here, so I know where the center of it's at. And the next thing to do is to make the piece that's going to screw into here. I think if you look way down in there, you can see where my hole came in from the side and sort of poked a little bit into the cavity where the big thread's at, which is not the least bit important. I knew that was going to happen, but I thought I'd show you guys. So I know I've got a good thread all the way in though. I decided to single point the thing. I've got a die that size, but I'm going to single point it until I get down really close to the finished size, and then I'll run the die up on it. And I'm doing that just so that it'll be easy to start the die. You know, that I know the die is going to make the right size thread. Probably more reliable than me, but at least I get it started. Then when I start the die, it'll be started straight, and it'll make a nice straight thread. I guess that makes sense. It's not good to cut a thread that's sticking out that far, but my center interferes with that tool post, or the tool post interferes with the center, and the next step down is a dead center, and I don't think it sticks out far enough for me to get the tailstock all the way up against it. So I'm just sort of taking a chance here and making very small cuts. Hopefully you can see the thread gauge. Now I'm cutting an even numbered thread, so I believe I could start it on any line. But just to make me happy, I started on line 1, and I'm going to continue on line 1, even though it makes it take longer. Advance the tool just a little bit more and wait for line 1 to come around again. Well, darn it, I was looking at something else and it went by. That's alright. I've got all week to do this. Actually, all of practically forever. Alright, so it goes on like that until I get the thread cut. And I'm going to stop having you watch that dial turn. Okay, so I threaded it down to the last few thousandths, then I cleaned it up with the die. And my piece screws on there quite nicely. Seems to be reasonably tight. Whoa. And it screws all the way up to the shoulder, which I wanted. So now I'll put the center back in here, and I'll finish this side of the little booger. So this side is going to be 0.450, and it'll be 0.450 for about 3/4 or an inch. And I'll have some room here to put a knurl so that I can turn it easily, hold it easily. I think that'd be the best thing, would be a knurl. So let me get things set up here and we'll work on the next step. I decided to go ahead and do the knurl before anything else gets any thinner, and so there we go. I've got the plain old push against the bearings, simplest kind of knurling tool, so there's nothing fancy or grand about it. I'm not putting a bunch of lubrication on it because I think you don't need it with brass. I believe that's as good as you can get. We're stopping right there. Then I'll continue on with the piece in the middle. There's no point in you guys watching me cut back and forth across that little piece in the middle. I'm going to cut it down to 0.450. Alright, I used a tool to cut one edge, and then I used the, lean to the right to cut up to this one. Then I got a tool that leaned to the left, cut up to here. And when I got within about 20 thousandths, I switched over to the parting tool, because it's a nice flat tool I could grind to go in there. And I'm down to 0.4485. So I measured the bore and it looks like it's 0.449. So I think that gives me a half a thousandth clearance. So it's time to stop cutting. I'll dress up these edges and then part this thing off, and we'll see how well it fits. Hopefully it'll fit just right. So I'll need to clean up this edge here. Before I do, I guess do a little decorative work on it here. Move this thing over some. Just right. Time to part it off. If I can find the parting tool. That brass sure does pile up on things. That'll work. Enough of that. I'll break it off. Okay, there we are. So it wound up 0.445 before it would slip in without being stuck. So there you are. That fits. I need a piece of 1/2 inch square aluminum and a piece of 1 inch square aluminum. I probably got stuff I could make that out of, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until the metals supermarket down the street is open, and then I'll go get it from them. But so far So good. Enough for tonight. Go and kick back a while. Well, Bubba and Bobby Sue was driving around through the country, and they got into an argument, you know. And after they got tired of telling each other that they was wrong and I'm right and all that stuff, they just started to shut up and was driving along there. And the next thing you know, they come by this farmyard there, you know, out there around the barn. There was pigs and mules and stuff. So Bubba looks over there and he says, "Hey, is your relatives there?" Bobby Sue says, "Yep, they sure are. They're in-laws." Well, that's all, folks. Y'all try to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Leave a comment if you got something to say. And above all, remember, keep on keeping on. Bye now.